Welcome, everybody. This is Jeff Paniati, IT Executive Director, and I want to welcome you to our District Section and Chapter Leadership webinar and call on One ITE. This is the second of two sessions that we have been hosting in July, and obviously a lot of interest in this topic. I think we had over 60 participants at the first session, and I can see that we have more than 40 online already this afternoon. So hopefully all of you on here have heard at least a little bit about One ITE, either through information that was in the ITE Journal, on a previous district section and chapter call, or from our President, Michael Sanderson, as he's traveled around to district meetings. Our goals today are to fill in some more details and be able to give you a comprehensive picture. I think the thing that you need to recognize that this is a work in progress, and that's why perhaps what you heard previously, you'll get a little bit more detail today than you heard in the past, and it isn't because there wasn't a desire to share it. It's an effort that has been evolving in recent months and weeks, and so we felt like we're at the point now where we could really provide you that clear and comprehensive picture, and that's what we hope to do through today's presentation that Michael will give. I just wanted to give you a little bit of background and kind of how we got here. So this is a broad initiative that is an outgrowth of the Strategic Initiative Committee that was started by then President Paula Benway back in 2016. So, you know, that created a conversation within the board and with some of the other leaders within ITE, looking at where we wanted to go as an organization looking toward the future. And that followed in 2017. There was work that was done really looking at developing a renewed ITE strategic plan for 2018 through 2020. And that strategic plan was adopted by the board last fall in November of 2018. So as Michael came on board as president in January, he created a One ITE task force that I'm sure he will talk about more. And we've been moving forward since then. So a lot has happened in a relatively short time with regard to the specific One ITE initiative starting in January. But I think it's important to recognize that it has roots going back really a couple of years now of discussion and thinking about the opportunity really to position ITE for the future. The effort is multifaceted, and as Michael goes through, you'll hear about a lot of different pieces. And those pieces are at different stages of maturity. And so you just, again, need to recognize that not everything has gotten to kind of a polished final stage, and some things are further along than others. But overall, our goal today is to give you a perspective on the breadth of One ITE and a little bit more detail about some of the individual elements. Michael's going to walk through this PowerPoint presentation that we have up, and then we'll come back and have a Q&A session at the end. So feel free as we go along, if there's something you have a question or comment that you want to type into the chat pod, I'll be taking a look at those and try to organize our conversation as we get to the end. So with that introduction, Michael, let me turn it over to you.
All right, thank you very much, Jeff. I was just watching here as people were logging in. I see lots of names I recognize, and I know many of you have heard pieces of this information before. Hopefully there'll be a little more here to kind of round out the information for you, and for some of you this may be the first time you're really getting much background on this. So we'll walk through each of these areas, and then feel free to, as Jeff said, chime in with questions in the chat box as we go. Jeff did a good job of kind of explaining the lead up to where we're at today with the One ITE task force and the One ITE initiative, in that there's been quite a bit of discussion and planning and strategic planning sessions to get to this point, and now we're really, moving this forward. At the beginning of this year, so only about 6 months ago, we appointed a task force that we called the One ITE Task Force, chaired by Dan Beatty, who's our international director from Florida, along with a number of other international directors. So these are your elected leaders who make up the task force who's leading this effort. The real goals of the One ITE initiative are around the idea of creating a consistent member experience through the strategic planning process. As we really evaluated the Institute and what areas of inconsistency, areas of weakness, areas where we could improve. Out of that process, we really identified a significant lack of consistency across the Institute in the way we operate and the way we're organized, and thereby the member experience, what ITE members experience in terms of support and connection from ITE International, just a host of different things, and I'll go into more detail on that. But a clear and really one of the most important priorities that came out of that strategic plan that we adopted the end of last year was that, we need to be able to deliver a consistent member experience for ITE members in terms of consistent opportunities to participate in ITE activities, participate in leadership, consistent opportunities to attend meetings, a consistent and equitable representation by their elected leaders, a whole host of things that we needed to take a look at, as well as things like brand consistency and a number of other things. And having a consistent organization in terms of the way we operate and that member experience is key if we're going to provide effective member support. If the Institute is going to consistently provide consistent communication to its members, work with those members and provide them the tools and information and support that they deserve as ITE members, there has to be a consistent organizational structure out there to operate in if we're going to do that. And all of this is about providing the member value that we need to provide if we're going to ensure the long-term viability of ITE. At the end of the day, the International Board and I know Jeff and the executive staff feel very strongly that this initiative is critical if we're going to set ITE up for success over the long term, because it's a competitive marketplace out there. As many of you are probably members of other professional organizations, there's numerous others out there competing for the same members, our members' time and dues, and and if we're going to compete in that marketplace and continue to grow and be a successful member-driven organization, we have to address some of these issues. And so that's why the board set this as one of its highest priorities and launched this, and I helped launch this initiative in January. So, why now? Well, certainly there's a lot of change going on in our industry. And that's not new. I mean, we've been talking about some of the dramatic changes that are happening in terms of the industry, in terms of technology, the workforce, all sorts of things that are changing rapidly. And as a organization that represents our profession, we obviously have to change and be nimble to keep up with that. So there's certainly external drivers of change, but I think maybe more importantly, why now for ITE is, and maybe we're even more than a little bit behind the curve on making some of these changes, but we've had some things internally that are driving this change. We've undergone a fairly dramatic transformation over the last few years with our first new executive director and CEO in more than 30 years. we've taken a significant look at and made significant changes in the operation of the organization at headquarters on that side of the organization. And then along with the adoption of a new strategic plan, really the time is right with a new strategic plan, a board that's very aligned with that plan, and a new executive leadership. It's time to take a look at the other side of the organization, which is the way we operate on the volunteer side, which is our district sections and chapters. And as we've launched this initiative and the task force began its work in earnest towards the end of January, we really dove in and have identified many points of inconsistency across the organization. And I touched on this, but going into a little more detail, what are those? They're various, and they touch virtually every part of our organization. There's inconsistencies in terms of the size and geography and governance structures of our districts. That impacts the way our members are represented and their opportunities to participate. There's significant variability in the organization of our sections and chapters. This gets to the way our sections and chapters have been defined, and I'll get into some more detail about some of the changes we've made there. But our sections and chapters until now, for some reason, have had the definition of a section and the definition of a chapter have been word for word identical, which I think explains why, if you look at our sections and chapters across the entire Institute, we have some chapters that are larger than some of our sections. They have boards, they conduct meetings, they collect dues, they look and act like sections. Likewise, we have some sections that probably act more like we think chapters should look like, and they've evolved over a significant period of time that way, but to the point now where there's really not a clear hierarchy between district sections and chapters. And so we're taking a look at all of those and trying to create a consistent organizational structure that makes sense. There are inconsistencies in the way we support our students. Now, ITE, I think generally speaking, our student chapters and our student activities is a strength of the Institute, but there are certain parts of the Institute that are much stronger than others, and we've got certain areas that don't support our students and our student chapters in the same way, and so there's opportunities to improve there. I mentioned leadership opportunities. One thing that we know from member surveys and other experience and feedback is that, the ITE members who become the most engaged in the organization, who participate and engage with and recruit new members or become champions of the organization, really become those members for life, are those who get involved. And of course, on this call, I'm talking to a group of district, section, and chapter leaders, so you're already in that group. But once you become involved, whether it's as in a leadership role or serving on a committee or those types of activities, that's really where the highest level of engagement comes. But we do not provide consistent opportunities across the Institute for our members to participate in leadership. Depending on the chapter or section or district you're from, you may have, there's examples of sections because of multiple chapters are involved that if you want to participate in leadership, you may have, 4 to 8 years to wait if you miss your opportunity to run. In one case in the Midwest, if you want to run for international director, you might have a 12-year wait to run for that office, depending on the rotation amongst the states. In terms of district size and geography, this is a big opportunity or a big impact on people's opportunity to participate. Our smallest district is the Great Lakes District, which has somewhere around 700 members, maybe less than 600 voting members. By contrast, the Western District has 4,000 members, and do those provide equitable opportunities for people to participate in leadership? So that's something we're looking at. There's significant disparity in dues across all of that. We've actually already made a few changes with respect to our Canadian and global district dues, which I'll talk about. And then there's the issue of affiliate members. And many of you probably heard about this, and I'll talk a little more detail about a proposal that we're moving forward to deal with affiliate members, because with our constitutional amendments that were adopted last year, the Institute affiliate category at the international level has gone away, and that will need to cascade down through the charters of the district sections and chapters. So we'll talk about that more of that in a minute. So many points of inconsistency, and I haven't even touched on all of them. I think every one of these points of inconsistency is an opportunity for us to for improvement. We can improve on these things and make our members' ITE experience and the value they get from ITE better. So what are some of those? Because of the way the organization has been allowed to kind of evolve without much guidance over a long period of time, over decades, in many cases, because of the disconnects in governance at the district section and chapter level, there's not a strong connection for many members to ITE International, to the extent that some members don't necessarily even understand what the role of ITE International is. And so we need to, one, make sure we clearly define what that role is and what the services are that we need to provide to our members from ITE International, and then make sure that's well communicated to all our members. We need to define and clarify the role of district sections and chapters and the hierarchy of that governance structure, some of which the board's already begun to do. Through that process, to the extent that we can, we should try to eliminate layers in the organization. When we have layers that don't need to be there, it creates barriers to communication and barriers to the organization working efficiently. And so where there are opportunities to eliminate layers, we should do that and increase the efficiency of the organization. Through this process, as I mentioned, to the extent we can provide more and better opportunities for people to participate in leadership, that's a positive thing for the Institute. There's inconsistencies in the charters. Through this process, we will be issuing new charters to the districts, which then subsequently will issue new charters to the sections and then to the chapters to clarify things like the affiliate member category, but also other things where there's inconsistencies, to try to make to the best we can have some consistency at the charter level, which will then drive some changes to bylaws. We're in the process, subcommittee of our task force is working on development of a model set of bylaws for districts, sections, and chapters that we will provide and work with the various districts and sections to develop new bylaws that have some consistency. That's not to say that they are all going to end up being exactly the same. There's a lot of reasons due to geographic makeup of the different districts and sections that some of them need to be different, and that's understood. There's certain things that, however, that we think should be consistent across the whole organization. I mentioned that, we're going to look for opportunities to strengthen our connections and support of student chapters. Currently, almost all of the sections, all the districts, and most all of the sections have their dues collected by ITE International. We're going to move towards having all dues collected by ITE International so that members get one dues statement from ITE, not multiple dues statements. So all dues would be collected by ITE International and then distributed as such. Through that process, chapters will no longer collect dues. Those will be collected at the section level and supported through the section. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. And then I already talked about the affiliate member category, and we'll talk about our proposal there. So what have we done to date? I've mentioned in the first few minutes here that there's several things that we've already acted on. The board's been working hard. We launched this in January. We had the opportunity to meet for the first time and review the task force's efforts at our spring board meeting in May. At that meeting, we adopted new definitions for district sections and chapters. I'll go through those next. We adopted a new due structure for our Canadian and global districts. Because ITE, it's a global organization. However, it's very U.S. centric. There's certain value that members outside of the United States don't receive, and so there's kind of a tiered due structure that we've adopted so that our Canadian and global members are paying for the value that they get. And that was adopted in May. The board adopted a resolution to move forward with this initiative in May that charged the task force and headquarters staff with initiating the process that will ultimately result in new charters being issued for the district sections and chapters, and subsequently new bylaws to be adopted that are consistent with the new constitution and those newly adopted district section and chapter definitions. We've developed a proposal for an affiliate member transition plan. I'll talk about that. We're going to consider that hopefully in its final form at our next board meeting coming up in August. We've initiated efforts to draft the model bylaws, which will set up kind of a model governance structure for our district sections and chapters. And as we've done this, then we've taken these new definitions and our understanding of the inconsistencies, and we've evaluated the entire Institute, all of our districts and sections and chapters across the Institute, and identified where there's inconsistencies that we can deal with. And several of the areas that we're working on, we've already initiated discussions with the Florida district on reorganization of their sections and chapters to become consistent with the model. We've initiated discussion. There's been significant work going on between the Midwest District Board and the Great Lakes District Board and the Movite section, which is part of the Midwest District, on the realignment of those two districts. And last month at their annual meeting in Keystone, we initiated discussion with the Western District on possible realignment of the sections within the Western District and the possible creation of a new district. And so I'll talk some more about that as well. So that's kind of what's going on. There's, as Jeff said at the very beginning, this is all a work in process. Some of this is further along. Some aspects of this are further along than others. So quickly, I want to go through the definitions of the district sections and chapters that were adopted, really the chapter mission and purpose, or district section chapter mission and purpose. It is a governance structure, kind of a hierarchy, which allows us to represent our members, and that the district, which is kind of the largest subdivision of the Institute, is the mission and purpose is to support the overall goals and objectives of ITE. And that's at that level, the district level is the level that provides representation on the international board. And so those international directors are there are elected at the district level. Further, the district's mission and purpose is to support and coordinate with the sections within the district. So as I mentioned earlier, it's the districts that charter the sections within the district, and broadly to support the interchange of technical and professional information throughout the district. And some of that's done directly through the district's own meetings. Other aspects of that are by supporting and coordinating with its sections. The district should encourage membership participation and leadership opportunities through all levels of ITE and support student and younger member programs. Further, the board adopted the statement that districts should be similar in the number of members included and represent a geographic area where member interests are similar. So, this is a broad definition of what a district should be. The board purposefully didn't try to enumerate every last detail, or, we talk about being similar in number, purposefully didn't set an exact number, because there are lots of things to consider, but broadly the district should do these things. The next level down, which is the section, is, you notice it's a longer definition here. It's because the section is really that local level where most members are going to participate on a regular level. The IT section is the primary affiliation for IT members at the local level. It too should support the overall goals and objectives of ITE. So the goals and objectives of ITE is established by the international board, should cascade down through all the levels. These aren't independent organizations from ITE International. The section should support the activities of the district and coordinate with the district. So there's definitely a two-way communication between the district and section. The section, this is kind of new, this idea that the section should financially support and coordinate with chapters within the section. And when I talk about the chapters next, you'll see that the chapters are a subdivision of the section, and with the consolidation of dues collection at ITE International, dues will be collected at the section level, and that's why the sections will need to provide support to the chapters financially. This is where we foster that closer association with IT members. We share knowledge of local transportation issues. This is the local level. Collaborate with local professionals, and support and mentor students and student chapters within that section. Sections should be of a size that allows members to convene regularly. Now, this is another area where we didn't specifically say what regularly means, because it probably is different depending on the size and geography of a section. But more often than you would meet at a district level, presumably. So then the last one is the chapter, and the chapter is to serve, the mission and purpose is to serve as an extension of an ITE section. So this chapter is really an outpost of a section. As I mentioned earlier, we have sections and chapters right now that pretty much operate similarly. The hierarchy should be that a chapter serves as that outpost. So it's an extension of the parent that allows closer collaboration on a more convenient local level, so that that group of members that's in a maybe geographically distant location from the majority of section members who want to get together and meet periodically and organize some local activities could do that as a chapter. And I think of the example of the Arizona section, where many of the members are in the Phoenix area, but there's a group down in Tucson that organized the Southern Arizona chapter, and they meet periodically, and that, that's kind of the hierarchy. It's clearly subsidiary to the section. So that's the hierarchy of district, section, and chapter. And as we go through, and I'll talk some more about a few of the examples of things we're taking a look at and recommendations we're going to make to change a few things to become consistent with that. Many of you have already been contacted if you're in that group. So the affiliate member transition plan. So with our constitutional amendments that were adopted last year, the affiliate category of membership went away. The history there, historically going way back, we were the Institute of Traffic Engineers. To be a member of ITE, you had to be a traffic engineer. And if you weren't, you couldn't be a full member of the Institute. The way you participated was as an affiliate. Over time, we've allowed others, transportation planners and other transportation professionals, become members of ITE at the full level. Last year's constitutional amendments really just kind of codified that in our Constitution and made what we were starting to do in practice consistent with our Constitution, which says that if you're a transportation professional, whether you're an engineer or a planner or a technologist or anybody who is involved in the profession and wants to be a member of ITE, they can sign up and be a member. With that, there's no need to have the affiliate category anymore. What happened over time was that affiliate category had cascaded down to the district, section, and chapter level, where we have had people participating as affiliates at the local level who, even prior to the constitutional change, could have been full members of ITE, but chose to only pay affiliate dues, which is really never the intent of the category in the first place. And so with that going away, what we've said is, okay, now what do we do with many of these members or affiliates? I'm not going to call them members. Many of these affiliates who we don't want to disenfranchise and tell them they can't come to our monthly lunch meetings or whatever anymore. So we either need to encourage them to become full members of ITE or give them some other way to participate, but not imply that they're members. And so our goal is to implement some sort of change that does that encourages them to full membership, recognize that some of those affiliate member dues were we're contributing financially to the sections and chapters. And so how do we try to compensate the sections and chapters for that loss of affiliate dues and maintain a positive relationship with those who don't choose to become full members? And so our proposal is that we would conduct an affiliate member drive starting next year. And beginning in 2019, ITE International would offer full membership to those members who have been affiliates at the local level. We would offer them full membership in 2019 for free. This is very similar to what we do with student members. Student members do not pay dues, but we give them ITE membership, they start to get the ITE Journal. They have access to certain ITE resources, so they can start to see what the value of ITE membership is. In 2020, they would pay 50% of their international dues, and by 2021, they would be at full member status and pay full dues. Through that period, even in 2019 where they paid no dues, and in 2020 where they paid 50%, ITE would pay the full portion of section dues back to the section. So the section would be getting their full portion of dues back, even though those members aren't paying their full dues. And so hopefully that would incentivize a significant number of people to sign up and become full members. For those who do not opt in to membership, we would create, or we would call them Friends of ITE. So I think we kind of robbed that language from TRB. You're either a member of the TRB committee or you're a friend of the committee. You can be a friend of ITE. Basically what that means is you're on our mailing list. You can get invitations to the local section meetings or chapter meetings. Welcome to come and participate. But when you come to participate, there would need to be some form of differential pricing. So there would be member pricing and non-member pricing, or friends of ITE price, and that so that when you get there, there's clearly a benefit to membership. Why would I want to be a member of ITE? Well, at the meeting I pay $20 for lunch, or $15 for lunch, and non-members pay $20, or there's some differential pricing. Now, if set up correctly, and we'll provide some guidance and help the sections through this, through a differential pricing and a pay-as-you-go model, those friends of ITE who participate will be paying incrementally more to participate, will essentially compensate for not collecting dues from those people. So in the end, the intent would be that the sections and chapters would not face a significant loss of revenue from this, but rather than collecting it in dues, which implies membership in something, they would collect it in differential pricing. So we have formulated this proposed approach. We're working with some of the district and section leadership to perfect this. There's certain areas of ITE that have a lot of affiliate members, some sections and chapters out there who have none. So this doesn't necessarily impact everybody, but roughly half of the sections out there have some form of affiliate member. And so we'll be considering this proposal going forward to our August board meeting. If you have feedback and input, please let us know. Send us an email or reach out to your international director with feedback on this plan. With respect to district section chapter realignment and rechartering, I already talked about the need to and the intent to recharter all of our district sections chapters to provide consistency with the Constitution and the new definitions. As we've looked at the map, there's a number of areas of inconsistency. One of those is Florida. I mentioned that already. Currently, Florida is organized, as you see on the left there, where there's two sections. There's Florida section and the Puerto Rico section with a handful of chapters. And so effectively the geography of the district and the geography of the Florida section are almost one and the same. And the boards, there isn't a clear hierarchy of district, section, and chapter. And number of the chapters are have grown to be large enough and have operations that look a lot like sections. And so the proposed approach, and Dan Beatty from Florida has been working with the Florida District Section Board to reorganize into a district that has 5 sections. The larger chapters would be elevated to sections. A few of the smaller chapters would remain chapters, and you would have a governance structure that matches the model of kind of the district with subsidiary sections and then chapters as outposts to those sections. So that's a reorganization that's been proposed and is in process, in discussion with the Florida board. The next one is in the Midwest and Great Lakes. The Midwest district is currently 11 states. 4 sections is all, but the MOVITE section is the one you see with all of the chapters, with 9 chapters. And the MOVITE section by itself actually operates a lot like a district quite successfully. The Great Lakes district, on the other hand, is just 3 states with 3 sections and fewer than 600 voting members. And its board governance is not set up consistent with with most of the other districts in terms of the way its board is organized. And so those 2 boards have been working together on a possible reorganization that would reorganize it into essentially the MOVITE section would become a district, and most of the chapters within MOVITE would be elevated to sections. And the Great Lakes district would become a true Great Lakes district in that Illinois, Wisconsin, and Minnesota would become part of that Great Lakes district. Now, currently, North Dakota and South Dakota and Minnesota are the NICSITE, the North Central section. They're already one section, and they would likely remain together since they're already organized as one section. But this is consistent with the discussion that's been going on about organizing around mega regions, and the mega region that surrounds the Great Lakes there would be much more well represented by this arrangement. And those 2, as I said, those 2 boards have been working closely together on a possible transition plan to make this happen. The Western District is the largest district in ITE. It's what do you see there? About 3,700 voting members, total members. When you include students and others, over 4,000 members. 13 states. The Intermountain section, which is made up of the 4 states of Montana, Idaho, Utah, and Nevada. Those 4 states are currently chapters who have a joint annual meeting as the Intermountain section. But each of those chapters effectively operates like a section with its own board and many of its own activities. And so there's the possibility of elevating those from chapters to sections, but it's a large district with a lot of geographic disparity and 4,000 members represented by just one board. And so we're evaluating options to potentially divide the Western District into 2 or more. Currently, all of our ITE districts have 1 international director. The Western District has 3 because of its size. So there's the potential that it could be divided a number of ways. One of the proposals that's being pursued or evaluated is the idea of a Rocky Mountain District that would include the mountain states of the Intermountain section, Montana, Idaho, Utah, Nevada, the Colorado, Wyoming section, Arizona section, and New Mexico. We're currently in the process of meeting with and getting feedback from those boards, as well as from the sections in Oregon, Washington, Alaska, and California on what a future Western District, Rocky Mountain District, or some other options might look like, and what the impacts of that might be. And so this is a work in process, but with 4,000 members, there's certainly an opportunity to represent our members, per the newly adopted board policy of the district section chapter definitions, where we said, districts should be of similar size and geography. There's an opportunity here to maybe better represent our members, or more consistently represent our members by looking at a new district structure in the West. I don't want to, all of those, the Florida proposal, the Midwest Great Lakes proposal, this proposal for the Western District are a work in process. We're going to discuss some of these at our board meeting surely in August, as well as our fall board meeting in October, all headed towards kind of an approach, or a rechartering approach, which, is also a bit fluid because of the timing of many of these discussions. We want to make sure we take the time we need to get feedback from our members at these various levels, to make sure the International Board fully understands the impacts, the pros and cons, and can make a good decision about what's the best structure to represent our members going forward. Our intent would be to consider drafts of the new charters and bylaws, which the task force is drafting here in August. We will hopefully act on some of those in October, with the intent of having new charters issued sometime probably in early 2019. That will then initiate the need to issue new district bylaws. The districts will have to work to adopt new bylaws, and then cascade down through the issuance of new section charters and bylaws, and then down to the chapter level. So while this is a process that's starting now, and we will continue to kind of march forward with making appropriate decisions as we go, the full implementation of One ITE, which is an enormous initiative and we haven't even touched on all of it when you think about brand standards and a whole bunch of other things. This is a multi-year effort, and some of the transitions could take several more years when you start to talk about transitioning board structures and other things. And so it's not like this is an immediate change. There's a lot of work to be done over time, but time is of the essence in that, it's been 30 years since we've really taken a serious look at much of the structure of the Institute. And I don't think it's safe to say that the world has changed a lot. Our populations have changed, our industry has changed, our membership has changed a lot in the last 30 years, and it's time for ITE to kind of bring the Institute up to the modern day, and that's what our intent is. So just to kind of reiterate the goals of One ITE, it's to increase the consistency and quality of that member experience. And that includes everything from opportunities to participate to making sure we're providing equitable support and value from ITE International to our members. We need to do this if we're going to create an organization that's effective so that we can differentiate ITE in that crowded marketplace and be the association of choice. Our members expect a lot of value for their dues, rightfully so, and we need to be able to provide that value if we're going to retain those members and attract new members. And all of that is so that we can, build and maintain a strong financial position, so that we're a viable organization for the next 30 or 40 or 50 years. I'm confident that the International Board has the future in mind and is going to make decisions that it thinks is in the best interest of the long-term interest of ITE and its members. But to do that, we definitely need your input, your feedback, to make sure we understand all the implications of this really far-reaching effort. So I appreciate you listening to all that.